For this lesson, we're going to paint a really simple kitty. And if you like, you can always use your own image, or go to my online course, Watercolor for Kids, for a free download. And to find the course, you can always go to my website, birgitoconnor.com. Now let's go ahead and get started. Now to make this easier, and especially for the eyes, you may want to use a micron pen or a fine tip permanent Sharpie marker. Now we're really not going to do too much with this, just make a few lines. But where it makes a big difference is in the eyes, because if you use a brush that doesn't have a fine point to it, it can look a little spacey. So using the pen, we're able to get the detail that we want without the color bleeding. So go over the pencil sketch with the pen, or maybe you decided that you're going to draw directly on the watercolor paper first. Either way, it's fine. And another nice thing about using the pen is that it makes it really easy to get the whiskers on. Now we really don't need to do too much, we just want some lines so we know where our image is. Now I imagine that most of you may have a set similar to this at home. So you can use the brush that came with the set or one that's slightly larger. So using a little bit of the black and brown, I'm adding some water to it so it's a little lighter in color. Then using that larger brush, I'm going to go ahead and start filling in the kitty. And it's okay if some of the color goes outside the lines. In fact, it'll make it look more like fur. Just wiggle the brush along the edges just to get some color in there. We're not really trying to fill in the whole kitty. We're just adding some brush strokes. Keep the color more along the outside edges and change the pressure on the brush. So what that means is press a little harder now and then, because what it does is flatten the stroke of color. And to separate the legs, let's just place a little line in the center. Now we really don't need a lot of detail. In fact, that's what we're trying to avoid, because this way you'll have a better idea of how to work with watercolor. Now I'm going to bring just a little bit of that color down into the face and around the eyes. And as you can see, the color's really light and not thick and pasty. And to tone down those white areas, I'm going to add just a little more water. Now I can go ahead and leave the painting flat on the table and continue to paint this way, or just for fun, I'm going to place something just underneath the painting to give it a little lift. That way the color will start to puddle in areas, and that can help add to that texture for the fur. Then just like we did before, bring the color down the sides. And to keep it fun, wiggle your brush. That way you won't have any really straight lines. Then to help give this a little more shape and texture, as the surface starts to dry, let's add some more color. Now we really don't want to get caught up in too much detail for the paws, especially since the rest of the painting's really loose. So while the color's still wet, using clean water, let's just soften some edges on the bottom. And to balance it out, maybe just a little on the side. Then using the brush that came with the set, or a slightly smaller one, let's mix some color for the eyes. Now I'm going to choose a little blue, but you can decide to do green or blue, or whatever you think they should be. Then just fill in the inside area of the eye, and what really makes this kitty is if you can leave a little white space right in the center, because that helps to give us that sparkle in the eye that we know kitties have. At this point, you could really leave it alone and just add the whiskers. But if we want to add more color and more shape, Let's deepen the value. And what that basically means is add a darker color. The paper's still a little damp, so as we apply the brush strokes, it's going to have more of a softer look to it. Now the goal of this painting is not trying to paint every little hair, rather give the impression of it. And maybe I'll add just a hint of pink in the ears. Now remember, if you like the way the painting looks, at any time you can stop. But what I'm going to do next is take it just a step further. So using a flat brush, I'm going to come back in and add just a little more color. And why I'm doing this is because I want to give the fur a two-tone effect. And it can help give the impression of stripes. Now this really is a lot of fun. And you don't want to add too much unless you want a black kitty. Just think of it as an accent. Just add a little along the top, the sides, and separate those legs again. And don't worry if any of the color runs, because it'll help to make the kitty look softer. And if you need to, you can go back in and add a little more color into the eyes. But don't forget to leave that white space, because that's what's going to give our kitty personality. Now for the black areas around the eyes, you could use a very small brush. Or you could also use the micron pen or the fine tip permanent Sharpie marker. That way your brush stroke won't be too big. And it works really well for the whiskers. Now I hope that you have a lot of fun with this. And if you like, post a picture of your painting. And you can do that within the course or on the page here. So until next time, happy painting!